Welcome to the Chef Founder Podcast. Today, I spoke with Jeff Mosher. Jeff was the head chef at Mondavi Winery for almost 15 years and oversaw their entire culinary program. He has since branched out and started his own private chef company. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Jeff, thanks for coming. Happy to have you. And you brought something for us, right?
Yeah, my pleasure to be here, Tony. I did.
Awesome.
I brought you guys some snacks.
Nice.
So.
Let's do it. Let's bring them out. I could smell it. I haven't looked at it yet, though.
This is something I was just actually literally R&Ding this morning.
Nice.
They're chicken and mushroom wontons with a blood orange ponzu.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So there's a little bit of cabbage, some ginger, some garlic, a little soy inside with the chicken and the mushrooms.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, and then it's a ponzu, but instead of, traditionally it's yuzu or maybe lemon,
Sure.
but I use blood orange because it's citrus season, and a friend of mine gave me some nice blood oranges recently. So,
Oh my gosh. It looks
You wanna
awesome.
try?
Yeah, I'll just dig in for sure.
yeah, go for it.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of cooking for me is kind of organic, the process. I had cabbage in the fridge, and so I was like, what am I going to do with this extra cabbage? And so I went to 99 Ranch, a good like Asian market, to get some glutinous rice and some dried shrimp because I was going to turn
That's
it into
incredible.
kimchi. And then I had extra, and I bought some wonton skins when I was there, so I decided to make these. And then they're ending up on a menu for an event I'm doing in the near future.
Can we get that, Trey? Yeah, I mean, I would think that R&Ding as part of cooking is probably one of the more fun things you get to do.
Absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
Kind of, it's for you too, right? And it's, kind of do it on your own time and stuff. And
Yeah.
and that's great. Yeah. So you just recently, you were the head chef at Mondavi Winery. Is that correct? It was for 14 years.
I was at Robert Mondavi Winery for 15
Wow.
and a half or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty unique. A winery having a chef. That's kind of a more unique thing
Yeah,
to see
it's
here in the
definitely
valley.
like fairly niche to Napa Valley. And when I started at Mondavi, my previous job was the chef at Julia's Kitchen, which was at Copia. Had a big organic garden, lots of fun, but full on, restaurant style operation with lots of cooks, lots of servers.
How many years were you there?
I was there from 2004 to the end of 2008. And at that time, I didn't even really know that there were chefs at wineries, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
But a friend of mine had transitioned over to Mondavi, in the year prior, and she was like, "Oh, hey, our chef just left. Do you want to consider it?" And I started meeting with people there. I met Margaret Mondavi. I cooked for people in the family, and got into their wines a little bit. And I was like, "This is a cool gig." Like,
Yeah.
you
It's very different.
yeah, you really get to craft like the menus and the dishes to the specific wines. It's more sort of private party setting kind of stuff. It wasn't quite the grind that I was used to in the restaurant, right? So the hours were a little bit better for me and the family. And I had a good long run there. I have lots of good memories. Built a nice big garden there at the winery, and got to travel on behalf of the winery, which was one of the best parts.
Sure. So most wineries don't cook. It's a zoning thing. Is it right? Or they're zoned agricultural. I know a lot of
Yep.
the properties, and so doing that kind of things, like you said, it's pretty niche. There's not a lot of places that do it. Why was Mondavi? Was it because it was like private only, or the food, right? Or
So, first of all, those zoning laws, which are, a good thing. It's why the valley looks the way it does. Like,
Sure.
there's not giant hotels everywhere, which there would be if they weren't there to preserve the agriculture, which is the vineyards. But what the intention was to not have hotels and restaurants all up and down the valley instead of the vineyards. What you were allowed to do was to have cook for family, cook for the trade, people that you already do business with, and then catering was allowed. And Mondavi was, because it's been around for so long, was grandfathered into some of that, but you weren't allowed to have a full-scale restaurant. That was
Right.
that was sort of the line in the sand. And in the time that I was there, that was, I started in like 2009. I would say that it's become a much bigger business, wineries doing food.
Sure.
Wineries
We've
having,
seen it, yeah.
having kitchens, having chefs, and everybody is definitely sort of pushing the envelope in terms of, what is exactly, allowed. But the wineries are trying to make money, it's bringing business. And so I think that as long as hotels and restaurants aren't popping up at the wineries, I think most people in the valley are like pretty much okay with it. But
Yeah, and I mean, you want a healthy balance too, right? You don't want to take away business from the restaurants, but also like food and wine go hand in hand, and you really, I'm sure a winery wants and appreciates the opportunity to showcase it in that kind of a setting, which it sounds like that's pretty much all you did, or a lot of what you did.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, that was definitely, Robert Mondavi's philosophy that he wanted his wines enjoyed with food, family, and friends. What better way to do that than to have an in-house chef that could cook for his guests? And I mean, it changed a lot. Like I said, I was there 15 years. So we started doing more consumer-facing programming, in the last 5 years or so that I was there. But it was always wine focused. It was always focused on what we were getting out of our garden or other local gardens and farms and stuff like that. And it was a great gig to be able to, like I said, just sort of hone in and tailor the experiences to the clients, to the wines, not have to maintain a 20-item restaurant menu,
right,
every single day. You can do it with a lot less staff. So it was good.
I mean, I can imagine, it's pretty easy to imagine how that kind of a setting is easier than a restaurant, right? Coming from Copia.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, what was more challenging, being at Mondavi in that kind of a style and format? Obviously you don't have the craziness of just, constantly pumping food and, those hectic hours and not knowing. That's a big one, right? In a restaurant is you can guess, but you don't necessarily know how much staff you're going to need that night, how much food you're going to need that night. But so what, I'm just curious, being the chef at Mondavi, what was something that was maybe more challenging or difficult than you might see in a restaurant?
So we would encounter logistical challenges from time to time because it was a small operation. It was me and a few other people. And we had a walk-in that was, sort of a large closet size. And it was, the size of the kitchen, size of the storage was good for us to do events for 30, 40, 50 people. But 5 times a year, we would do dinner for 300 for the concerts.
Yeah, we would deliver pizza ovens for rentals.
Yeah,
We've done that.
Totally. Yeah. So we did the dinner in the back for some VIP guests, some trade guests, back in the, right in the first couple rows of the vineyard, on the side of the lawn opposite the arch. And the kitchen was not really set up to do 300 people. That's when we're running out of sheet pans and, trying to store things every which way and needing more people. So sometimes, I guess just sometimes we sort of exceeded our capacity, but we knew we were going to do it. Right. So we figured it out. We created menus that would allow us to do it and that sort of thing.
Nice. Yeah. And, I've been a part of those larger events, and even ones that kind of happen every year, like Bottle Rock, right?
Yep.
And no matter what, there's just stuff you can't plan for, and it gets a little chaotic. But it's, if you're doing it right, it's controlled chaos, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you have a good team,
Yeah, and it's
dynamic,
it's
and
fun.
on your toes.
It's just
yeah. And so I read a little bit, kind of about your background and stuff. And it was a great article about you recently in the Napa Register, and I saw in there that you've traveled a lot to cook, or and I'm interested to know, in what kind of capacity was that? Was that kind of on your own? Was it on behalf of the winery? And what were some of your favorite places or cool places you got to cook at?
Oh, that's a great question. So it was on behalf of the winery, the majority of it anyway, and basically what it was some of them were one-offs. Some of the domestic stuff was a one-off. I would go do a wine dinner at a country club in LA, or I would do 2 events, in St. Louis or North Carolina or whatever. But
I'm just curious, why would you do that? Would it be for a VIP client or what?
It was usually set up through our sales team. So they would say, we have a restaurant, that has a bunch of, Mondavi enthusiasts, that come to their restaurant, and we want to put on an event for them.
Got it.
And, so like, I mean, people do these kind of wine dinners for all different wine brands all over the world all the time. Oftentimes they get a winemaker to come, or they just get sort of a spokesperson to come and stand up during the dinner and speak to the wines. So the ones that I was doing, we just added another layer and brought a chef, right?
Understood.
So we're doing the food, essentially the food that we do up here in Napa Valley, that we're creating to show the wines well. We're bringing that to other parts of the world.
So I understand. So it's curated experiences that revolve around the wine label. In your case, Mondavi. People just wanted a tasting wherever they happen to be, LA, wherever.
Yep.
And a lot of times wineries, sounds like they'll send a representative to do a tasting, but you guys got to take it a step further and do a pairing for people in different places.
Yep.
Got it.
And it was usually a dinner, 3, 4, or 5 course dinner. With pairings, with hors d'oeuvres. Sometimes, I did cooking demos in a few different places. Sometimes it was large receptions. But yeah, I mean, I've probably been to, I don't know, at least like a dozen different countries to do it. And so, for a number of years, I would go on an Asia trip where it would be basically like somewhere between 4 and 6 cities in about 2 weeks.
It's like a tour. You're doing like a tour, hitting a bunch, you got everything on schedule, and you do that every year, kind of.
Yeah,
Got it.
So there was like a time period, maybe, I don't know, 2011 to, it was definitely before COVID, where I would go every year somewhere.
Same clients every time, mostly, or
no? Usually, I mean, same. It was usually the same distributor, like our distributor in, say, Hong Kong or Shanghai.
Okay.
But like usually a different venue, a different hotel. Especially the ones in Asia was usually like a large hotel. And it was awesome, but it was also crazy, right?
I would imagine.
Because I would
we got to source the food when you get there. Are you bringing the food with you, or?
So I would bring a cooler that would go through 5 sets of customs in 2 weeks or whatever, But I would bring things that were either specific to the winery, like I would bring like Bordelaise that we would make with Mondavi wine, right? Or I would bring things that might just be like annoying for me to make. In that like short period of time, I'd bring like salt cured egg yolks or basil oil or maybe a vinaigrette that we made with some of the wine or whatever. But sort of like flavor enhancing things or flavor component things, whatever, we would definitely get all of the like proteins, vegetables, fruits, like in market. It was a process. Like I would go back and forth with the chefs for a few weeks or months prior to actually going there, but you never knew what it was. Like you would fly in to some foreign city, you would cook in a kitchen you've never been in with people you don't know, who don't all speak the same language, right? So, and usually it was like fly in, prep day, do a dinner for 50 or 100 people. The next day, you're in Hong Kong. The next day you fly to Beijing, do the same thing, and then you go to Shanghai, and then you go to Seoul. So it was fun because I got to experience those places. But it was also crazy. Like it was,
and I'm sure there's not a lot of downtime.
It's not a lot of downtime. Yeah. I would usually have like, a day or two off in the 2-week trip. Like I went to the Great Wall of China once. A day or two, total. Yeah. So you're working 2 weeks straight basically, and you might get a day or two. Yeah, and I mean, there's travel days which aren't, I'm not cooking.
Sure, but still, I mean, you're recovering from traveling.
Yeah, and you're, then you get to the hotel prepping. And you go in and you drop your stuff off. You check in, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't have any of the ingredients yet. And I'm like, oh, great. Taiwan was awesome, though. The place that I went to in Taipei, like I got there. I'd already been to a couple of places. They were pretty hectic. And I got there and go into the kitchen. There's like 12 people lined up. Like every ingredient on my list is laid out on a table, like by course, and they're like, we got you. Like,
wow.
I was like, I love you,
is the standard
Taiwanese
now.
people.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I've done a little bit of traveling and cooking together, never internationally, but one thing we'll do for some clients is when they get a pizza oven from us, I'll fly out there to help them install it, but then cook on it with them. And I mean, we ship, we overnight pizza stuff like in a refrigerated or insulated container and stuff. And, we'll have times where like the sauce breaks or something small like that. But like, it's not that big a deal. I would imagine in your situation too, I mean, these are obviously higher level VIP type clients and you want to provide a certain standard, very high standard. And you can't just run to the Safeway down the store like I do.
I mean, yeah, I don't even know where it is.
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
yeah. But I'm sure you had good support at those locations.
yeah, usually,
right?
like,
Yeah.
I mean, it would come together because, like I said, I was often, not always, sometimes it was like a small independent restaurant, but it was often a large hotel, and they maybe like it. Sometimes it would be a little bit rocky in the beginning, but then I would just be kind of like, look, we need to get XYZ done. Like, I need help from your team, and they would always do it. And I mean, sometimes they would have good ideas, and I would be like,
We're doing that.
yes,
instead.
let's,
Yeah.
if your people can actually, dip an almond in sugar and make like a long strand of like, solid sugar to put on every person's dessert. Like, yes, I don't have the time to do that. But like, if you have a pastry team of 20 people, like, knock yourself out.
Yeah, that's got to be nice. Just knowing, you're not solo. You're not on your own when you get into those situations. And you've obviously done a lot of planning. Any just real crazy stories that stand out after those years of traveling or those experiences cooking for people?
Like cooking stuff. I mean, I did. One time when I was in Hong Kong, so I would do. I think I was I was doing a dinner at a restaurant one day, and then the next day we had a bunch of media people. And we were doing, it was in the fall, and we were doing like a sort of a Thanksgiving dinner. Mm-hmm. And it was in this like weird little kitchen. Hong Kong, like everything is small, right? Because it's super compact, kind of like Manhattan, right? It's a finite amount of space, all of the kitchens are really small. Some of the ones that I worked in, there's no handles on the pots. Everybody has these metal tongs that you grab like a round pot. But anyway, so I'm in this weird little, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was like a demo kitchen, but it was like a kitchen that you could rent to have an event. And they didn't have a lot of like basic equipment. Like, I ended up having to make this like almond cake with no measuring utensils. Oof. No measuring spoons, no measuring cups.
It's not important when you're baking, measuring
right?
things,
Yeah,
right?
like I'm pretty good at sort of winging the savory stuff, but the baking stuff is harder. But I mean, I had a spoon, so I was like, that's a tablespoon, And I mean, it came out well, but that was
you
just got to roll with it.
Challenging,
you got to roll.
Yeah, I feel like there's a very specific type of person to do that kind of a job. They can travel and just think on the fly and can't come apart, right?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Yeah, and when I read that, it's it's something I want to learn more about.
Yeah, because nobody knows or cares that you're having issues in the back, right?
No,
like
no. I'm sure not at that level, especially at that level. So 4 years at Copia, around 4 years at Copia, 15 or so years at Mondavi, in essentially the same role, more or less, at Mondavi.
More or less. So there was a period of a couple of years where I took on added responsibilities. I got the title of Culinary Director of the wine division for Constellation Brands.
Oh, for Constellation Brands.
Yeah, because Constellation owned Robert Mondavi Winery,
right, yeah.
as well as the Prisoner Wine Company, Simi, up here, and those properties all had culinary programs.
Wow, similar to Mondavi's, or
similar, yeah. They had chefs, and then there was Booker and Paso Robles.
So you were food director for those properties.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you traveling between them a lot, or I guess in Napa? I mean, it's
it was easy to go from Mondavi to Prisoner.
Right,
it was like 5 minutes, but I would go over to Simi pretty frequently, and I mean, I don't want to be like a bummer, but like the thing that's the impetus to it was that a good friend of mine, Colin Vizoler, who was the chef at Simi, passed away in a motorcycle accident in the summer of 21. And so I just started doing the Simi stuff.
Got it.
Right. And, helping them with their program. And then a few months later, 3-4 months, as I'm just sort of doing that, my boss was like, we upper management have had discussions about, wanting this kind of position because we have these other properties like Lingua Franca in Oregon or Booker and Paso that are thinking of getting culinary programs. So we want to create this position because you're already doing a bunch of the work anyway, managing Simi and Mondavi. So that's sort of what happened, how it started. And then I did it for a couple of years, and there were some economic changes, and they were like, we're going to pump the brakes on the other properties, and we're going to stop doing hospitality at Simi. They're still going to make wine, but we're not going to do events there anymore. And so at that point, then it was pretty much just I was managing Robert Mondavi Winery and the Prisoner Wine Company, who has a Chef Brett Young, who's great. I worked with
I've
him.
met with Brett, yeah.
Yeah. He and I worked together for a long time in the past at Copia and then at Mondavi a little bit. And he's great, and honestly didn't need me to manage him a lot,
Oversight,
right?
yeah, sure.
So at that point, then then I went back in, I think that was 23, to just being the executive chef at Robert Mondavi Winery.
Got it. Question: is the wine industry struggling right now?
I think so.
If it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard things. I'm not tied. I mean, we live in Napa,
Yeah.
so you naturally hear about stuff. But as someone who's not, super tied into the wine industry, I've been hearing that a little bit. Tell me what you've seen. I mean, you're obviously, you're on the cooking side of it, but you're there and you're in the trenches.
Sure. I mean, broad strokes, certainly last year, maybe there was a COVID bump, right? When probably in
A lot of industries got that.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
in 22, 23, people started coming back to the valley after COVID. But then last year things seemed to slow down more, and it was also both sort of like sales in the wine industry. I think were slowing, and then
Sales in general,
Yeah,
or
like-
wine club, or just like all distribution and everything. or-
No, I mean lots of brands were down, in lots of different segments, like not just wine club. And so there was that sort of like overarching kind of macro effect on what we did. But then there was also, it seemed like tourism in Napa was
Definitely.
down more last year, right? I mean, you talk to people in restaurants and hotels as well as wineries, and you get sort of the same story. And I don't know if people are drinking less wine, younger, some people talk about, younger people are drinking different
Did you guys see it
beverages
at Mondavi?
and-
I mean, did you see like the newer generation coming in, or did it kind of seem like it was just the same generation? I'm curious because you were there for so long.
Yeah.
You're probably able to see that generational shift a little bit. Did you notice the younger people coming in, or not as much? Or
I mean, some for sure. It wasn't. I would say that I still saw a pretty broad age range of people at the winery. I mean, I think the consumer that is there, the segment is, probably over 40. But that's not to say that we wouldn't see guests that were 25 or 30 there.
and it's also every winery is different, and different age people like different types of wineries and stuff. So
Sure.
it's you are in a bit of a bubble. But I was just curious, if wineries are seeing that younger generation come in and be as enthusiastic about it as other generations.
Yeah, and I mean, Mondavi, what it has going for it is also sometimes what works against it. Like it's got a fantastic vineyard, right? The Tokalan vineyard is one of the best vineyards in the world. It's got like a great hospitality team, very knowledgeable wine educators, great food, and a lot of history, right? Like a lot of history. A lot of history.
Pioneer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
An icon in the valley. 50 years of history of making great wine, hosting great events. They did the concert series for almost 50 years. But that also kind of works against them because it's something that's been around a long time, right? They're not the new hip winery, right?
Sure.
And so they have to, marketing wise, sort of, deal with that. And, are they leaning into the history? Are they, trying to position themselves, as innovative? And I mean, Mr. Mondavi was always very innovative in a winemaking way. And I mean, the wines, I don't work there anymore, but the wines are still fantastic.
Agree.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, that's probably kind of the more important thing,
Yeah.
right? The rest you can figure out: branding, marketing,
Yeah.
marketing strategy, getting people in. If you don't have good wine, so that makes sense. That's
It's your
interesting
product
insight.
at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, that's really interesting insight. But yeah, definitely, just as someone who lives here, I've definitely seen that on the tourism side being down overall. So it makes sense that wine would feel it too. So, all right, 4 years, Copia, about 15 years at Mondavi. What was the big kind of thing for you to take this next step, which is you've left Mondavi and you've started your own personal chef business, essentially?
Yes.
So when did you kind of officially make that transition, and what was the big driver for you to take that step?
Well, I mean, I had been interested in, sort of doing my own thing for a while. But I mean, in all honesty, like, it wasn't my choice to leave.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So
Totally.
it was me and a few other people sort of at the same time, late last fall. And, there wasn't a lot of information shared. Not really going to try and get into their motivation, but, I'd seen this happen a number of times before with Constellation. And I wasn't super surprised. I was a little surprised, but, and so I just sort of I decided to try and treat it as an opportunity, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm like, okay, so they decided to make this move. I've been doing this for a long time. I had been thinking about making a change actually probably in like 2019 before COVID.
Had you been doing any private chef on the side or anything up until?
I mean, I'd done a few things here and there,
Okay.
but like not, it wasn't a business. It wasn't a business. No. And I mean, honestly, I was pretty busy. I didn't really have a lot of time to devote to it. Because we did have a really small team at Mondavi, and that was part of it that I liked about it, after coming from the restaurant where that was a lot of managing, and expediting and that sort of thing. But when I got to Mondavi, I was really like cooking every day. I mean, sometimes it would be me making dinner for 10 people by myself, and that was cool.
You were always cooking.
Yeah. But it didn't leave me a lot of time to do my own stuff. But I had done some, and I had also, done the travel stuff, or I've done, cooked for Margaret Mondavi in her home, numerous times. And like I did catering in my past, before coming to Napa in San Francisco. So I have lots of experience like doing that. And I just really liked the idea of running it myself, right? Like of
full creative control.
Yeah, creative control, control to be able to say yes or no to events. And I mean, and like, little things like I was doing some, work at the house with my boys. I'm like, we're going to plant a bunch of herbs in this section of the yard this year because I'll be able to use them for the business. Or, I have some pottery making friends who had made some plates for us at the winery years ago. I'm going to work with them to make some stuff for the new business. And, I don't need to run through 5 layers of approval to get the plates picked and the color and whatever. Like, I'm just going to, I'll get what I want to get.
Cut the red tape. Cut through the red tape. Yep.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of it in a big corporation. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, Constellation's a massive company, and you're dealing with a lot of different.
Yeah, and we had just, from the beginning, the first like number of years that I was at Robert Mondavi Winery, it was pretty. We sort of like did our own thing, right? There wasn't a ton of corporate influence, and there were lots of people that had worked there for a long time. There was a lot of people that knew Mr. Mondavi. And it had sort of like a family feel to it, even though it was owned by a big company. Then we had COVID, which changed everything for everybody. And then sort of coming out of that, they decided to renovate the property, right? So currently the winery up on Highway 29 in Oakville is under a massive renovation.
Seen
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it if you drive up the 29.
It's like, yeah.
So my end was I spent a lot of time working with cross-functional partners to develop, the kitchen. Develop the kitchen, the new garden. There was a number of different. There was the main kitchen and then a couple different outlets, on the property, and that was really cool. It was a lot of fun to work with a kitchen designer decide the best way to lay it out for efficiency, pick some fun toys. And at the same time as we were doing that, we were still doing events. And then we also started planning to move the hospitality operations to downtown.
Interesting.
To the Borrego building. You know, it was Stone Brewing most recently.
Yeah.
And so in August of 23, we moved down there. And so
it's a beautiful building.
It's a cool building.
Weird location, but it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little tricky with the parking and stuff. I remember Stone struggled with the foot traffic down there. But
there's a decent parking lot like behind the hobby shop.
There
behind
is.
The railroad tracks.
There is parking. It's just it's kind of.
That was everybody's first question for sure.
But it's such a unique spot when you get upstairs and you see the river and downtown Napa across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool spot. So everything moved over there.
Yeah, so we moved all our operations there. So I was, at that point then the chef there for about the past year and a half that I worked for the company, because we moved in there in August of 23, and that was cool. It was, it had its own, challenges.
Sure.
But I think the point that I was getting to was that with all of these big projects, the renovation project, the moving downtown, what's the new menu concept going to be for the downtown spot, there were lots of stakeholders at the table that had opinions on
a lot of chefs in the kitchen.
A lot of chefs in the kitchen, and took a long time to pick a paint color and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And now it's the opposite.
Now it's the exact opposite, right? Like, I don't need to run aprons by 6 people.
It's
nice.
What I mean? So, it's nice. There's definitely pros and cons. Working for a big company, working for yourself.
Oh yeah, it has its advantages for sure.
Yeah.
But
no, and it's great. You started, not started, but at least here locally, you went in from one setting, right? Busy restaurant, right? Lots happening. Total different dynamic. Head chef at a large winery for a large company. And now doing your own thing, they're all very different, right? And those different things help you grow.
Different chapters, right?
Different chapters, and you take what you learn from these other things and apply it to this new thing, and so that's great. And so for what you're doing now, personal chef. So I know like catering can mean a lot of things, especially here.
Sure.
Right. I'm curious how you define what you're doing. Are you a caterer? Are you a private chef? Personal chef? How would you kind of say what you're doing now?
Sure. So it's a personal chef business.
Personal chef.
So the difference, it is new to me, but the difference, as I understand it, is a private chef works for one client, one family, and a personal chef does small events at multiple venues, whether they're clients' houses, rentals, what have you.
Usually intimate though, right? Versus
usually
catering for 100 people. You can do that kind of stuff. But I know with Napa, there is a lot of that, right? There's a ton of catering companies, and they'll go up into the thousands in terms of people.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is a little more intimate, right? Smaller scale. Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Hands-on. It's me in your kitchen making the food, and it's a fully customizable experience. It's a luxury experience, where I'm going to use the best ingredients that I can obtain, and everything's going to be made, from scratch, and I'll tailor it to, what the client wants. If they want me to just go and make something awesome, then that's cool too. But if they're specific about what they want, that's part of the service, right? That you can get exactly what you want brought to you, and you don't have to deal with making a reservation in a restaurant. You don't have to get there. You don't have to wait, any of that kind of stuff. It's like, fine dining brought to your house. I will do, it doesn't have to be 5 people, I can do 20 people. But I've turned down some 80-person events because
it's a whole different vibe.
It's a whole different vibe. It's a whole, I might end up doing things like that down the road, but I don't have the infrastructure for it, and I don't want the business to be that big yet, at least.
It's just, it's very different. I know a lot of chefs doing catering and offsite, whatever, And I don't know a lot that do both. They kind of seem to focus on one. They're just so different.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And you've been doing that for about a year, or how long? How long would you
Oh
say?
no, I'm really just starting the business.
You're just starting.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because I was at Mondavi till November last year.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So you took the holidays and
Yeah,
here you
sort
go.
of tried to figure
New
out what
thing.
I want to do.
Awesome. And I'm curious, did you bring kind of a list of clients with you? Do you have that? How are you getting clients now? What's that look like? Just your strategy wise, I'm just curious how you
Yeah,
kinda
so
get
it's
the word out.
mostly leveraging connections that I have in the Valley.
Sure. Yeah.
People that I used to work with, people that I've met over the years, talking to them. Like so far it's been a lot of small winery kind of gigs. I would like to, and I have some, some
Kind of like doing what you were doing at Mondavi for wineries that don't have that head chef or
Yeah.
right, kind of give me a cooking experience at a winery that otherwise doesn't have the infrastructure or team on hand.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely like a segment that I'm happy to play in. Then there's the segment of people visiting the Valley. They get an Airbnb,
Right.
and they maybe want to go out to a restaurant 2 or 3 nights, but not every night. And then there's just people, also that live here that, maybe they own wineries, work in wineries, and want to have somebody come in. There was an ask for a company who they're going to have like a board meeting, and then they want dinner, and the meeting is going to be at, the CEO's house, and they want to then have dinner after the meeting, like that kind of thing.
So do you have other people involved in the business or when you're actually out there working, like servers or, do you have anyone else, or is it just kind of you doing your thing?
I mean, right now it's me doing my thing, but I'm going to get people. I have people that are,
Sure.
open
That
to
you help and
to
help
help
you.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool. Oh, it's interesting. And then correct me if I'm wrong. Did I see something about like meal prep, food prep?
It's
kinda?
definitely like a component of the business. It's something that I'm open to doing. I haven't actually started doing it for any clients, but I've had some inquiries. We're discussing the details and stuff like that.
Got it.
Like I said, I really just sort of launched the business. Really, honestly, like a few weeks ago is where I sort of told everybody about
Sure.
it. But it's something that I'm interested in doing. Like I think there's a market for people, especially people with specific dietary needs that want to have like healthy, fresh, restaurant quality food, ready for them in their house so that they don't have to make it themselves. And, the idea there is that you go to the client's house and you, over the course of a couple hours, you make them a few meals, right? You make them 3-4 meals, for the week, and you store them, you leave instructions, and then they just like warm it up.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, a demand for that here, for everything you just said. I mean, it's just Napa's such a cooking hub,
Yeah.
Food, agriculture, all that stuff, and wine, of course. And, it's definitely a big part of who we are here as a community, I think. There has been companies that do it here in Napa,
Yeah.
and I think, I know of one guy who was doing it, and then he just ran out of time and stopped doing it. And I definitely think there's an opportunity there,
Yeah.
for that.
And the advantage from a business side is that that's a regular
Sure.
gig, right?
Reoccurring, yeah.
Yeah, you got a couple of meal prep clients, and then you do, small events on Friday and Saturday nights or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, totally. They complement each other well, and
Yeah.
in terms of the different times of day, but you can reuse stuff. So that's great. Now, you cooked. Mondavi has a wood-fired pizza oven, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious how much did you incorporate that oven into what you're doing there? Did you use it often? And I would imagine so. But just talk to me about kind of your experience using it.
Yeah, so I got the wood oven probably a few years after I started there. I was probably there 3 years or so before I was able to get it like put into the
Was
budget.
that was you were the champion for that?
Yeah.
Getting it. You were like,
Yep.
guys, what are we doing? We need an oven.
We need an oven. We don't have to just make pizza. We can do like all sorts of stuff in it, and they were on board. I also got a nice big wood grill at the same time.
Like an Argentinian grill or
exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it was Grillworks.
Yeah, Grillworks, great
Yeah,
company,
it was awesome. Yeah, you could raise. It had two sides. You could raise them. Yeah,
that's the way.
So we used both of those pieces of equipment quite a bit, particularly for two different things. For like large events, I like to roast a whole side of salmon, or 10-bone pork racks, or a bunch of wild mushrooms, or whatever. And then sometimes we would do pizza, or flatbreads or that kind of thing. But we often would cook other meats and vegetables and stuff in it. And then the other thing that we did was a program that I started called the Garden to Table program. So where we had the wood oven was right behind the kitchen and behind the vineyard room, which was the main event space, and right sort of at the foot of the garden. So that program, guests would arrive at about 4:00. They'd get a splash of wine. I would meet with them. I would tell them the program is as participatory as they would like it to be.
Exactly what I say about my cooking classes.
Yeah.
For a lot of mine, is they say you can be as evolved as you want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And it varied a lot,
You like the people that just want to stand next to you and do everything and ask a bunch of questions, and then you have people who just want to sit down and drink wine.
Exactly.
Right? And you got to be able to cater to both.
Yeah. And so then we would go out in the garden and we would pick some stuff. We did that program May through October. So there was lots of stuff in the garden, and we would bring, tomatoes and basil and eggplant and whatever back. And then we would usually have the fire going, and we would cook something in the fire with them, prepare a couple of the items for the meal. Then they would disappear and go on a tour. We would pull everything together, myself and like the staff, and then do a family style dinner for them outside by the pizza oven and by the garden. So.
Got it. Oh, that's nice. And so, do you have any go-to wood-fired oven things you're cooking? I mean, I'm sure you've done a lot of different stuff, but like, do you have any favorites, dishes or types of things? Like for me right now, I'm doing a lot of ribeyes.
Yeah.
Cast iron, aged ribeyes, really fun. It cooks so fast, and it gets this insane crust that I really don't think you can get unless you're at this insane temps, right?
Yeah.
So what do you like? Did you have some just go to? This is my wood fired oven dish that I love to do.
Yeah, I mean the ribeye is a good example. We did a bunch of those last April with my friend Chris Shepard came and did an event with us, and he wanted to do ribeyes, so we actually brought these ribeyes from Texas that we did in the cast iron pans. Yeah, they were awesome. I mean, I like. Yeah, so I mean, two things. Like I mentioned, the salmon I like in there. What we would do with that is we would do a brine on it that had like some soy, some brown sugar, some citrus, and do it on a rack on the skin, and just roast it in that oven. Not like as hot as if you were doing pizza, right? But you would get a nice sort of crust on it, and then you would display like the whole side of salmon.
Right.
Flake it off, serve it with a little, whatever, fennel radish salad or something. And then, I mean, I like doing vegetables in it too, like getting a little bit of the char on the mushrooms or the carrots and the turnips, like things like that.
Doesn't take much to make really good vegetables in a wood-fired oven.
Yeah.
Right? It's like some oil, salt.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just that char.
Yeah, and you don't need it in there a long time.
No, it's so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts are
always
great.
Seems to blow people's mind.
Yep.
They're like, I've never had a Brussels sprout that tastes like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I love the char on the Brussels for sure, whether I do it in a pan. But the wood oven is a great way to do it. And also it's efficient for like a large, setting.
Yeah, I did a Brussels sprout one recently with like bacon in it, and like some hot honey.
There you go.
Yeah. Honey is a good one with the too. Like when you like carrots, like you do carrots and stuff. But vegetables is fun because it's so simple, and it always, especially like when I have someone who's never cooked in an oven before, I like to do a few vegetables just so they can see that it's not this crazy recipe with crazy method. It's like you just oil, salt, cook it really hot for a little bit, and pull it out, and it just has this incredible profile that it's hard to get using anything else.
For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I like cooking in the wood oven for lots of different products for sure. It's a tool, and it's a tool that's good for, I mean, if you have a big one, like we wouldn't use it for like every meal just because it, takes an hour and a half to heat up. And if we have lunch for 10 or 6 or something, but we would use it for lots of the larger events. or that weekly garden to table on Thursdays. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's unique. It's a unique way to cook. It's just different. It gives you a different kind of way of doing it. Yeah, I'm interested to know, or I want people to know if they want to. Anyone wants to book you
Yep.
for anything. Like, what is it? Do you going through your website right now? Or?
yeah, the website's definitely the best way just to find out what the business is about, find out what the options are, and then the contact information is there. The website is my name, jeffmosher.com. Super easy. And then, the direct email for the business is just chef@jeffmosher.com.
Got it. And so if anybody has any kind of private cooking related stuff, under 15 or 20 or maybe a little more than that.
Yeah, 30.
30.
Yeah, I'm turning down, I think 15 above at the moment,
Sure. That makes sense. And we talked actually, the way we got connected is I had asked you about any interest you had in being on or doing a cooking class, with us. And I think that'd be really great. We've got a few different places now in Napa where we have our ovens and we can host and do different type of events. So if we did a summer class, what do you think? What would the menu look like? Do you think? What would you want to do?
That's a good idea. So we're talking a cooking class for
let's say we did something like end of June, early July.
End of June.
We'll do like a 3-course thing,
Yep.
right? We'd do
I would probably do
app, main and side and a dessert. What would you put through it?
All right, you're putting me on the spot here, Tony. But all right, so late June, I would probably want to get some really nice peaches. Like stone fruit is still going to be good then.
Sure. Yeah.
Get them, char them in like a cast iron. Chop them up, some arugula, some pickled onions, some pistachios, probably a cheese into like the salad. I like the aged sheep's milk cheese from Paso called Aries.
Okay.
That's a really good one.
You can get that like Whole Foods or something. Or?
You can probably get it at Whole Foods. Yeah. It's let's see. Oh, now I'm blanking on the company, but there's a large, it's still sort of niche, like cheese company from down there. Central Coast is what it's called. Okay. Central Coast Creamery. And the Aries is made by the daughter of the owners of Central Coast. And she started making
her own brand kind of.
She started her own brand, and she started making like these cheeses when she was in high school. I think she's probably in her like early 20s at this point, but super tasty. It's, an aged sheep's cheese that's got, a smooth texture, nice saltiness to it, a little nuttiness. It's really good with the stone fruit. So then I would probably do... can I do a steak? Is that like too boring to say I would do a steak?
No. No.
Yeah. So, I would probably do a steak.
You can do like a cool cut or something.
Yeah.
Do like a tomahawk.
Do a bavette
bavette. Whenever I talk, the chefs are always say that bavette. Like I wanted to cook a bavette in that oven.
Yeah.
It seems like an industry cut that chefs really like,
It's super
lesser known. I feel
very
like.
flavorful.
Yeah.
They're a little tricky to cut.
Are they pretty thick or like
what's that?
Are they thicker or are they about?
Well, it
depends.
It looks sort of like a flank almost. It's in America it's called flap. It's the same thing. Just bavette is the French name and sounds cooler.
It does sound cool,
right? But so it's a pretty big piece, but it's not as consistent as like a ribeye. There's like thinner ends and thicker parts.
It's harder to find too. Like I was looking all around Napa because I had one of the chefs we flew out was like, I want to cook a bavette, and I was like, all right. And I went to every butcher I know, and they're like, no, we don't have it. Sorry. And so we had
maybe Browns Valley. I don't know.
No, they didn't have it. But I wonder if that place Buds in Petaluma. Have you heard of that place?
Maybe. Or who I like is the Sonoma Meat Company.
Oh yeah.
Yep. They do.
Where are they? What city would you go?
I think it's in Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a hike.
But they do wholesale business.
Interesting. Okay.
And they also do the retail shop.
Okay.
They would definitely have it. Whether they would have it on a given day, I don't know. But
all right. So we're doing the bavette.
We're doing the bavette.
All right. That sounds good.
Yeah, I would probably do. So the June, you're getting some like nice new like marble potatoes. Mm-hmm. Do those, in the oven. And then what I like, which is sort of like maybe not the most like intuitive thing, but like super works, is pesto with Cabernet. Ooh. The like basil and the sort of umami from the pine nuts and the parm.
Yeah.
So one thing that I would do is take the potatoes out of the wood oven, toss them in a nice basil pesto, serve them with the steak. Maybe we roast some mushrooms in there too.
Yeah.
And then just serve that with, a Napa Cab.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course this class is going to be
it's got to
definitely
be wine.
master
Got to be a wine class, right?
with it too.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, and what are we doing for dessert?
All right, so dessert, maybe we've already done peaches. Like what I think would be good in the wood oven would be like an upside down cake in like a cast iron pan, something like that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, because you
That'd
could
be different too. Just really.
Yeah, and you could get maybe like a different stone fruit, like apricots or something.
Yeah.
Do them in the pan, put your batter, put it into a spot in the oven, like you let maybe the ovens cool down a little bit from doing the steaks.
Yeah.
And, just tuck it away sort of in the side and let your cake just cook. Make a little ice cream, make a lemon verbena ice cream or something to go with it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, we got to do it. We got to do it. It's happening.
I would love to. It'd be fun.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it was great talking to you
It
and
was
getting
fun.
to know you. And, wish you the best of luck and looking forward to working together this summer, hopefully do some classes or something. So.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to do it. Good luck with the podcast.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. And thanks for the snack. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome.
Set the standard now for the next guest. so they're going to have to beat that. I don't know if they will. So awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Jeff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.